Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking, and as always before the video starts, I want to use this opportunity to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal or Super Thanks. Your support really helps, so thank you friends and have a blessed day. Now today's video I will start with the settlement of Bakhmut and discuss the situation here. First, it is important to note that in the last few days, Russians had significantly reinforced this front, doubling down on their mission to not only recover positions lost to the previous Ukrainian counteroffensive here on this front, but even advance further, capturing territories they were unable to capture so far, with recent and significant Russian territorial gains to the north of Bakhmut in the general direction of Bogdanivka, and with recent Russian counterattacks in attempt to reclaim recently lost Andriivka and Klishivka. Many Russian sources started to claim that Russians are trying to reach Chasiv Yar, a vital logistical hub for the Ukrainian forces in this area, and a primary target ever since Russians started encircling Bakhmut. They were trying to reach Chasiv Yar from the south through the village of Ivanivsky and along this road, and to the north through Bogdanivka and Kalinivka. As we all know, it never happened, but now as time goes by, it seems more and more probable. My claim that the Russians will continue to attack here until some sort of important tactical victory is achieved is supported by new Russian territorial gains here in this area. First, let's touch the situation on the southern flank, where as a result of a successful offensive operation in the general direction of Klishevka and its surrounding heights, Russians were able to advance within this force line and capture about this much territory from the Ukrainian side. As you can see, Russians now physically reached this road and are just few steps away from a vital trench network that is located on the tactical heights right above the village of Klishevka. Perhaps as I speak, the battle for those trenches currently ongoing. The Russians were also able to successfully advance within Dacha area, and as a result of those successful offensive operations, were able to capture this much territory from the Ukrainian side. Those recent Russian gains are also acknowledged by pro-Ukrainian sources. For example, here on this map we can see the situation of yesterday, and here is the situation of today. So here was the Russian advance near Klishevka, and here was their advance in the Dacha area near Bakhmut. So as you can see, the fresh reinforcements had surely added energy to the Russian attacks here on this portion of the front, because here they too started to advance pretty significantly. However, not as significantly as on the northern flank of Bakhmut, where here Russians have been on the offensive for a pretty long time. Attacks came in the general direction of Ukrainian-controlled villages of Bogdanivka, Grigorivka and Orekhovo-Vasilivka. As a result of that, you can see that Orekhovo-Vasilivka is partially occupied, and village of Khromovo, which has been target for the Russian forces for a long time, had finally came under their control. When it comes to the recent territorial gains, it is Russians that made them. First territorial gain appeared here near the settlement of Khromovo, where as a result of 24 hours of fighting, Russians were able to recover this much territory from the Ukrainian side, and as you can see are getting very close to the road 00506 that leads to the very vital and important town of Chasiv Yar. At some point Russians were already close enough to reach this intersection that was reinforced by trenches and strongholds, but were unable to pass through it, and now it seems that Russians are advancing in its direction yet again. One of the territorial changes that I've just discussed is also reflected on this pro-Ukrainian map. So here you can see the situation of yesterday, and here you can see the situation of today. With their recap map, we can actually see how far Russians made. Last time they were trying to take control over this road, and as you can see, slowly but surely Russians are retaking all what they have lost on the northern flank, while slowly working to achieve the same goal on the southern one. Then from Bakhmut, let's quickly move to the settlement of Andriivka and discuss the situation here. Here Russians were on the offensive as they attacked from Krasnogorovka across the rail line in the direction of Novokalinovo, also attacked in the general direction of the settlement of Berdichi, in the direction of Ukrainian-controlled Kokflands, and continued fighting for the control of the village of Stepove. Those Russian attacks are met with fierce Ukrainian counterattacks as they are continuously and endlessly counterattack Russians in attempt to stop them from achieving any tactical or strategic goal, and thus far were able to successfully stop Russians on multiple portions of the front. However, Ukrainian counterattacks did not help here, as Russians were able to significantly increase their zone of control around this garbage mountain, which Russians are currently using as a very important stronghold, and vital tree lines, which allow Russians to accumulate troops for storming operations in the direction of coke plants and dacha areas of Avdiivka city. The hottest spot on the map, however, remains to be the village of Stepove, as Russians are clinging to the outskirts of the village that they were able to yet again capture, while Ukrainians are actively counterattacking in attempt to throw Russians back to the force lines and the rail line. Here you can see on the video as Ukrainian BMP driving on the very edge of the Ukrainian-controlled portion of the village and firing upon Russian-controlled portion of the town. Then from here let's quickly visit the settlement of Gorlovka and discuss a small territorial change that appeared here near this mountain, where as a result of few days of fighting, Russian forces were able to recover this portion of the territory from the Ukrainian side. Generally speaking, there isn't much to talk about this particular portion of the front. Both sides are engaged in positional style of warfare. Two big cities are located here, the Gorlovka and the huge conglomeration of small cities here. And in order to successfully operate in this area, you need concentration of a lot of troops. And perhaps both Russians and Ukrainians are not willing to do it as of yet. Then from here, let's quickly visit the settlement of Kupiansk and discuss the situation here. Generally speaking, although Russians are continuing to attack all across this front, there's almost no territorial changes to report. The only one is coming from one source that claims that Russians re-entered the very outskirts of the village of Sinikivka and the battle is currently ongoing within its few streets and houses. But these reports are scarce. In any way, I decided those news to be interesting for you, so I reported it anyway. Then from here, let's go all the way to the Zaporozhian front and discuss the situation here. Mainly, we will discuss the situation around Orikhiv city. In the past 24 hours, it was Russians who were constantly on the attack, as they attacked from the Novoprokopivka in the direction of Rabotino. They did so to increase their general defensive capabilities and push Ukrainians away from their recently gained positions. Also counterattacked from Verbovo, perhaps in attempt to do the same. When it comes to the Russian attacks in the direction of Rabotino, the result of them is still unknown. However, Russian counterattacks around Verbovo had reached success, as elite VDV forces stormed Ukrainian positions to the northwest of the village and successfully captured a small portion of the front. Here on this picture, you can see exactly how much territories Russians were able to recover in that attack. And yet again, the territorial changes that I've talked about has been also touched on the pro-Ukrainian side. So here was the situation of yesterday, and here is the situation of today. So as you can see, Ukrainians too acknowledged this successful Russian counterattack. Now at last, let's again discuss the situation on the Kherson front and, to be more specific, situation around Krynki settlement, as this is the only place where Ukrainians were somewhat successful in landing their troops and holding on to their territorial gains. Recent report suggests that Ukrainians currently hold around 300 men on this bridgehead, as you can see not very much, and are struggling very hard to transport those said troops in and out of the Krynki settlement as a rotation mission. What doesn't help is absolute Russian artillery and aviation superiority. For example, here on this video you can see Russian helicopters circling around the settlement of Krynki, firing upon Ukrainian soldiers within it, and using flares or decoys to avoid being hit by Ukrainian fire from the other side of the Dnipro River. And again, generally speaking, this doesn't look like a victory at all, despite how strong and actively Ukrainians are trying to prove you otherwise. At this point in time, and with the situation currently developing, Ukrainian forces had dug up their own grave and are actively jumping in there for the reasons that I don't know. In any way, this is the end of the video. Hopefully it was to your liking and was informative enough. If it was, please consider supporting it with a like, comment, and a subscription. As you know, those actions not only help promote this video to a wider audience, but also motivates me to work harder. Thank you in advance. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.